small tax court case can have a major impact on our U.S. taxing system. Hey everyone, Adam Bergman here, tax attorney and founder of IRA Financial. And today's Adam talks how a $15,000 tax court case all the way up to the Supreme Court can have a major impact on the constitutionality of the United States government to tax appreciation of wealth, meaning to be able to tax an individual or business who actually didn't have an event, i.e. no sale of an asset, no capital gain, no earning of income. Simply by having an asset appreciate in value, can the United States government tax the amount of that appreciation? Well, we're going to find out soon enough, probably in a couple months, thanks to a very small $15,000 Supreme Court case called Moore. And it's a very interesting case. I've mentioned this before. It's Moore of the United States. I actually had a client, really great guy, who emailed me this a couple weeks ago and said, hey, interesting case. Take a look at it. You may want to talk about it. And I've followed this case, but actually probably should have done a Adam Talks on this earlier, but I appreciate Mark, great guy, for sending me the email. So I'm going to go through the case. It's a very simple case, but the core decision that the Supreme Court will have to make will potentially have a huge impact on a wealth tax, as Senator Wyden, President Biden in his 2025 budget has hinted at. But it may ultimately, it's like a slippery slope. You first go after the billionaires. Who's to say you can't go after the millionaires and then the folks who are in the middle class being able to tax appreciation on assets each year versus actually selling that asset? So I'll go through some examples and kind of talk about potential impact. So it's a very simple case, as I mentioned, Moore v. US. The case really comes down, and I'm going to just kind of go through some of the facts. In 2005, Charles and Kathleen Moore, they invested in a company in India. They never received any income, interest, dividends, or any other distributions from the company in India because they just reinvested the profits. The Moores acknowledged that the value of their investment increased by more than $500,000. And the case stems from 2017 Tax Cut and Jobs Act provision, which had a provision that said that if you have a foreign investment and the foreign corporation earned income overseas, it would be subject to repatriation. Okay. So this was a change in law based off the 2017 Trump Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. And basically the way it worked is, since the Moores own more than 10% of the company, the Moores would have to recognize tax on the appreciated assets, even if they didn't receive any of the income and gains from their investment. So basically the Moores paid the tax on their amount, and they're challenging the provision, which is this tax on foreign investments. And this is, again, passed part of the Tax Jobs Act of 2017. And they're basically saying it's unconstitutional. It's basically a mandatory repatriation tax. And yeah, it was passed by Congress, but they're saying it impedes on the 16th Amendment, which provides the federal government the right to tax, but they believe this provision goes above and beyond that particular amendment. So they basically paid the tax and then sued the government and said, we want our money back. Yeah, we paid it, but we don't think you have the right to tax it. And the 16th Amendment says, it was ratified in 1913, and essentially allows Congress to levy an income tax without the need to apportion it to the states. And historically, those taxes have been imposed on what we consider realized income, like earnings, interest, rents, dividends. Okay. Here, based off this 2017 repatriation tax, there was actually no event, right? Nothing happened. There was no sale of an asset, no interest, no income earned, nothing, no death, nothing, right? All of what transpired was, because of this change in law, they were now having to pay tax on just appreciated value of an investment. They didn't sell the investment. They didn't actually receive any cash from it, right? The company just reinvested the money. They never got a dollar, but the investment did go up. And based off this MRT provision in the foreign income in the Tax Cut Jobs Act, now they're stopped paying tax on that amount, which ended up they owed $14,729 in the tax bill on their investment, and they basically sued for it. Okay, so this is now before the Supreme Court because their argument was, hey, there was no capital event, there was no income earned, there was nothing. So this goes above and beyond the 16th Amendment, which gives you the right to tax, but historically it's always been a tax based off an event, right? You earn something, you do something, sell something. Here it's just air, right? It just went up in value. And constitutionally, how are you able to tax that? Right. And that's the slippery slope where it just opens up the door. In 2023, Senator Wyden proposed a billionaire's tax, which would basically only tax stock, not real estate or private businesses. And it's if you had $100 million of income 3 years in a row, or a billionaire 3 years in a row, they would take your value of all your stocks. And if they were gained, they would impose this tax on it, even if you didn't sell it. And it was really only going to apply to 700 people in the whole country. Not a big deal, but again, it's the slippery slope. It sets precedent. President Biden in his budget talked about a very similar concept of a wealth tax for high net worth, where they're just going to tax value, okay, without a capital event, without any time of earned income, without any sale event or income receipt event. They were just going to tax it, right? So this is a super crucial case. Not because we're billionaires and we're not one of the 700 people that would have to pay this Senator Wyden proposed tax, which never went anywhere. Or if President Biden gets elected again, any type of wealth tax that him or Senator Warren want to, put forth, not concerned that it would apply to you and I today. But who's to say in years down the road that they say, hey, this worked great for billionaires. Now, why don't we do with someone who has $10 million in assets? And then 10 years after that, maybe someone has $5 million in assets, right? So it sets the precedent. And we know once the government is able to do something, they can't resist, right? We run a $3 trillion deficit each year. We have $34 trillion in deficit. As interest rates go up, we are in a bigger hole every year. 40% of our GDP going to pay off debt. So we're going to need more tax revenue. And this is a sneaky way. And again, this was part of the Trump. So this is not a Democrat-Republican thing. The Trump administration slapped this in to the Tax Cuts Job Act, right? This is a Trump thing. This is a Republican thing, not a Biden thing, not an Obama thing, right? Now, did they anticipate maybe the repercussions? I'm not sure. But this was part of the Trump tax plan. Okay. So I'm not coming here saying Republicans are good, Democrats are bad, or vice versa. I'm just saying this is a reality. You got a Supreme Court case where the Supreme Court will rule in June. At least that's what's expected. It's a minor little $15,000 tax case, nothing case. But if the Supreme Court rules that this repatriation tax is legal, which I know was part of the Tax Jobs Act, which I think that's probably going to be their answer. This totally opens the door up for a Senator Wyden, Senator Warren, a Biden, anyone down the road to say, hey, let's use this case to say, hey, we are now seemingly under the 16th Amendment. We are allowed to tax on appreciation of assets, not necessarily on actually anything earned, right? We're all cash-based taxpayers, right? We're individuals. We don't accrue. We're not like Tesla or a publicly traded company or a big company where we pay tax on accrual basis, meaning we pay tax as the company earns it. No, we are a cash-based taxpayer, meaning we pay tax on what we get. So if I buy a stock for $5 and it goes to $500, if I don't sell it, I don't pay tax on that value. Now you may say, well, when you die, there's a step up in basis and now it's an estate tax, but there's at least an event, right? I died. There's an event that would trigger this tax. Here, it's just like, hey, I own this investment in this company or the stock. It went up in value. I'm alive. I didn't recognize a dollar, no interest, no dividends. I didn't sell it, but you want me to pay tax? First of all, how am I going to pay the tax? And number two, seems unconstitutional because there was no event, right? And based off the 16th Amendment, there was no earning of that asset, or the income or gains from that asset were not earned. So as a cash-based taxpayer, why should I pay it? So both sides have very good points. My concern is the government's in deep in this thing. So the numbers I found shows that based off this provision in this 2017 Tax Cuts Job Act for the repatriation of income, they've collected over $300 billion. So if they have to pay it back, that's a $300 billion refund. And even if they limited it, the cost is expected to be at least 3.5 billion. So I assume the Supreme Court is thinking about that and saying, if we rule for the Moors, this will cause anywhere from a 3.5 to $300 billion expense for the government. Okay, which, maybe at this point they don't want. On the other side, if they do vote for the government and show that the MRT is legal, then I think the door is open, right? It's open pretty narrowly at first, right? Maybe Wyden and Warren only go after billionaires. But as I mentioned, once the government feels they have the power to do it, it's just time, right? It's going to happen. Where they say, you know what? There's only 700 or 800 billionaires now. That's not enough. Let's go after the guys that have 100 million. And then after that, you know what? That's not enough. Let's go over the folks that have 50 million. And then it just keeps sliding until most of us are going to be paying this wealth appreciation tax or some version of it, whether it's only on stocks, maybe it's only on real estate, maybe it's on everything. Who knows? I'm just saying it is a scary precedent. And I've seen it from a tax perspective. Once the government has the ability under the code to do something, they're going to take advantage of it, especially when it actually will bring in money. And this wealth appreciation tax, if they can expand it down the road to more than just billionaires, could potentially bring in hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars of extra tax revenue, which I guess we do need, but is it constitutional and is it fair that you're taxing people when they actually didn't realize the gains? Now, we're not a corporation. We're not an accrual taxpayer. We're cash-based. So that means we should only recognize the income when we earn it, just like we only get expenses when we capture the expense, right? I don't get a charitable deduction if I think about making a charity to a contribution to a charity. No, I get that deduction when the check's in the mail, right? Or when I send the wire or when I give them cash. So now how do you want me to take in income when I didn't get the money? There was no capital appreciation, right? It's one thing if you invest in a partnership, right? And the company made 10,000 bucks. Okay. And you have a flow through entity and you have phantom income, meaning you get the allocation of the profits, but not the cash. But at least you got the allocation of the profits, right? Your capital account went up. You technically have a right to that money. Here, this is a foreign situation in India where it's a company. The company didn't dividend any of the money. So there was no flow through of income. So you didn't even get the benefit. And the company reused it. And now I have to pay tax on something I didn't earn. So it's going to be very interesting. I'm very concerned that the Supreme Court will rule for the government just because I think the cost of losing is grave. It's too much money at stake. And then my concern is it's not just going to be applied to like this minor provision, MRT, that only impacts businesses and very few shareholders. Senator Wyden and Warren, they're going to be following this case and they're going to be like, look, we can do it. It's constitutional. They're going to show the Moore case. And then after that, there'll be someone else to say, look, why can't it apply to these folks, guys, people that make over $1 million bucks? And we need the money, right? If you're a millionaire, you're rich, you could pay an extra X dollars in taxes. Don't be greedy, right? But it's just, if they're able to do it and the door's open, they're going to walk through it. And that's my concern. And that's why, thank you, Mark. It's a very important case, actually, even though there's only $15,000 at stake, but the ramifications are enormous. The impact it could have on the tax system, on the future, and on the range of options the government has to tax us is massive. Okay. And it's scary. And I'm not sure how they're going to rule. And I can see arguments on both sides. Because again, this was 7 years ago, right? They collected hundreds of billions of dollars in taxes. They obviously felt when Congress passed it that they had constitutional authority to do so. It's part of the Tax Cuts Job Act. And now someone's coming back and saying, hey, that's unconstitutional. And I'm concerned that now this opened up some of these senators and members of Congress to saying, hey, if it works here and the Supreme Court backs us, then we have carte blanche to just start going after people. and saying, hey, you own a business worth this, we're taxing you. You have real estate worth this, we're taxing you. You have stocks worth this, we're taxing you. Tough luck if you didn't recognize income or gains. Moore said we can tax you. I guess the 16th Amendment has been now codified as an expanded amendment that doesn't just apply to earned income or actual cash receipt. It actually applies to a lot more, and we have the power to basically do whatever we want, so we can do it. And then our job would be to, vote these people out of power, because as a democracy, as voters, that's our job to say, well, you think you can do that, that's great, but you're going to pay with your job because we're going to vote you out. But that's our job to do it. And if there's enough people that support these folks, like Senator Wyden and Senator Warren, they've been talking about this stuff a long time. Guess what? They've been in the Senate a long time. So there's enough people in, whether it's Massachusetts, Oregon, or whatever state a particular member of Congress or senator is in, they are clearly doing what they feel like their constituency wants. So you may be sitting in a different state saying, that's not cool, that's not fair, that violates the Constitution. But if they have the Supreme Court backing them, it's going to potentially be a massive win for some of these progressives who need and feel like members of certain wealth class need to pay more, even though they pay a huge share of the pie. That they feel it's not enough, and they'll have the codification with the Supreme Court case. And listen, we are in a major deficit, so you're going to have people that say, listen, we need to find the money somewhere. Pulling it out of low-income people, there's only so much juice you're going to get out of the rock. The big pockets are for the rich people. My fear is that, do they go from billionaires to millionaires and then lower, and then before you know it, everyone that makes more than 400K is paying this wealth appreciation tax, and somehow we have kind of lost our way. So to be continued. I hope you guys enjoy the podcast. Again, if you guys have questions or if you have ideas for future shows, just there's an interesting case or a ruling you don't understand, or you think I should share it, please do. And I appreciate Mark for sending me this email. You know who you are. It's a really important case. I should have probably brought it up, some time ago. But since the Supreme Court is hearing oral arguments and they are going to rule on this case in a couple of months, I just thought this was a really good opportunity to talk about it. So thank you guys for listening. If you're watching on YouTube, appreciate it. If you have any feedback, please share it. If you enjoyed it, please give a good review. And again, the more comments and reviews I get, the more this podcast would be able to be heard by more people. And that's the whole idea, right? The more people that listen to it, the more people get educated. We're all smarter and better investors. So really appreciate it. Thank you guys for hanging out with me today. Hope you enjoyed the podcast, and see everyone again next week.